Unlocking the Ancient Secrets to Healing by Gail Lynn. Radiesthesia is the ancient Egypt and Hermetic science of operating with invisible frequencies in the non-local realm. The premise is that the human body and soul is merely an instrument that can be fine-tuned to recognize and operate in the non-local. As part of my healing program, I was determined to start digging deeper to learn more about the inner workings of the mind, the emotions in the body, and the effects they had on each other. I expanded my reading to encompass books on the psychology of human nature. I was curious to learn more about what makes people tick, why we think and behave the way we do. I wanted to understand Travis's bizarre behavior and why I had been so willing to put up with it for so long. I followed that trail into the worlds of alternative health and medicine, researching the mind-body connection. I discovered that our emotions and thoughts can contribute to imbalances within the body. I learned that the beliefs you hold about yourself and the world and your emotions, memories, and habits can all influence your mental and physical health. I started exploring and experimenting with natural healing modalities and approaches. Reviewing my life and relationships, I saw that I had a lot of self-esteem issues. I remembered how back when I'd first started dating, I'd attracted a lot of narcissists and men with drinking issues. I learned that's not uncommon with adult children of alcoholics. And I added every aha of comprehension to a growing list of unhealthy patterns and behaviors that I needed to work on. Still, understanding the roots of one's patterns and emotions isn't always enough on its own to resolve things. Sometimes we need to find a way to move the stuck energy through and out of the physical body to fully discharge it. And that, I became aware, was precisely what I needed to do with the unhealthy, smoldering anger that still lurked beneath the surface of my smiling personality. I was still mad at Travis and myself, and no amount of understanding or relief or joy at having extricated myself from a marriage that had gone so badly wrong seemed sufficient to fully release that amount of pent-up anger. It was time to get physical. David Stanley and I didn't stay together as partners, but our care for one another endures. I call him up to check on him every so often, and he does the same for me. And I still say, I love you at the end of our conversations, not in a romantic way, but for all we had been through together. After weighing it all up, there were only two downsides. One, having depleted my savings and retirement funds, I was now broke. And two, I'd been so focused on taking care of everyone else's needs, I'd overlooked one fundamental principle: taking care of others is best served by filling your own cup first. Once again, my body was reminding me that I had been neglecting my health. Fred's need to be important kept him from being an outstanding teacher, as he believed that the less he shared with people, the more valuable he was. What he didn't understand, which I was now learning to appreciate, was that when it comes to energy, and everything, including money and information, is energy. The more you share, the more you receive in return. When I read that piano music balances the nervous system, I invited a physician to set up some heart rate variability HRV tests. I wanted to see if the piano music I played when clients were in the light box was really affecting their autonomous nervous systems. The physician's report verified it was having a beneficial effect. I continue to educate myself on all the different facets of health and illness. I read a lot of books on emotional trauma. Among the standouts for me was Alison Steadman's Who's the Matter with Me, which, considering it was published in the early 1960s, was way ahead of its time. And then something wholly unexpected happened to propel everything I was doing in a new direction. Some might call it divine intervention. Others would argue against that, claiming it was just a fluke, a coincidence, or a lucky outcome to an unfortunate experience. Personally, I believe that there are no such things as accidents. As for coincidence, well, I prefer the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity, or meaningful coincidence, which he attributes to a governing dynamic that underlies the whole of human experience, which allows for temporarily coincident occurrences of acausal events. But that's just my opinion. I'll tell you the story and let you judge for yourself. It happened on a cold November day in 2016. It had snowed the night before, but I wasn't overly concerned about driving, as that I learned to drive in Michigan, where snow is present many months of the year. I'd been to the barn to spend some time playing with my beloved horse, Holly. I had bought her a large activity ball, which she enjoyed pushing around the arena. I've been trying to teach her how to push a barrel. I left the barn to head back to the center. I had a couple of clients coming in at 10:30 a.m. and I wanted to be back in time to open up and turn on some heat for their sessions. As cold as the temperature was, I felt a warm flush of pride as I sat in the car, reflecting on the great job Holly had done, pushing the barrel for the first time. I started the engine and let it idle for a few minutes as I impulsively texted a friend to share my delight at Holly's cleverness. She texted me back instantly with a friendly warning to not text and drive. I'm not, I reassured her. I'm still at the barn. I'll be leaving in a few minutes. Having done this drive between the center and Holly's home at the barn every day, since she had come into my life, I was very familiar with the route. Nonetheless, I was mindful of the need for caution. The road was still covered in a layer of snow, and there's a heavy glow that seemed to create an aura around the traffic lights, making them a little harder to see. I didn't know that because the LED bulbs in newer traffic lights don't get hot, snow doesn't melt on them. Instead, it sticks directly to the traffic light casing, which causes a diffusing effect that makes it harder to see whether the traffic light is red, yellow, or green. I was stopped for a light heading east. I was unaware that the traffic running north to south could not see the color of the lights changing. My light turned green, and so did the green arrow for a large truck alongside me, which was turning left. I proceeded forward, looking to my left as the truck cleared from view. I saw a car heading towards me. Unbeknownst to me at the time, it was driven by a teenage girl who had only just gotten her driver's license the month before. Unfortunately, instead of stopping at the red light, the young girl kept on driving. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her coming. Instinctively, I hit the gas to try and get ahead of her, but I could not outpace her, as she was doing somewhere between 45 and 60 miles per hour. What the F? I screeched in shock as I heard the sickening sound of metal scrunching into metal. My body jerked sideways towards the passenger seat. Then it immediately bounced back as my seatbelt responded to the impact of the collision by clamping itself to my chest with steel-like rigidity. Then the car started spinning around and around the intersection. It happened so quickly, I had no time to register the details. It was as if everything was punctuating my consciousness in ragged, staccato-like movements. Then all of a sudden, or so it seemed to me, someone was yanking the car door open as it suddenly dawned on me, I just got hit. Still dazed, I looked up at him and blurted out as if I knew him, "Oh, thank God you're here. I'm so glad you're here." I had no idea who the man was, and yet I was utterly convinced that I did know him. "What are you saying? You don't know me," he said. "Yes, I do," I insisted. He continued looking at me blankly as if I must be suffering from some concussion. I couldn't move my neck, my chest was hurting, and I couldn't comprehend that 15 minutes had passed since the collision. I would have sworn it had just been seconds. It happened 15 minutes ago. It wasn't your fault. She ran a red light. It was so brutal to watch what happened to you, he said. Since he had to get to work and could not wait around any longer, he gave me his number in case I needed a witness and left. When the police arrived, they immediately said I needed an ambulance. I refused. "Oh," one officer said, eyebrows raised in surprise, "then you're okay?" I am so not okay, but I need to get to my office, I said. I didn't bother telling the officer what I did for a living. I was too busy scrolling through my phone, trying to readjust my eyes as everything was blurry. I needed to let my clients know that I had been involved in an accident and would be a little late for our appointment. One doesn't have to be in a war zone to suffer PTSD. It can happen to anyone who's experienced any kind of trauma, physical or otherwise. Thanks to the chamber, I recovered remarkably well physically, but still the reason for the accident, the sheer precision of the timing involved wouldn't leave me. I couldn't shake off the freakiness of the experience or the knowledge that every single component has to be perfectly orchestrated to within a hair's breadth of a split second to result in such a collision. On top of that, I was struggling to come up with answers to some more critical questions, such as where had I gone in those 15 lost minutes? What had I been doing and why had I felt so sure I knew that man? I never did get concrete answers to any of those questions, but what happened next convinced me that there must have been a purpose to the accident. For all of a sudden, the design concepts of the harmonic egg and innovations I've been mentally playing with for some time got strangely more explicit. The vague thoughts and ideas I've been playing with gain more substance, and I find myself coming up with potential solutions that I never considered before. Strangest of all, I seem to have acquired more knowledge about sacred geometry, harmonics, frequencies, and patterns than I was convinced I hadn't read in my book. How could that be? Having read Neale Donald Walsh's Conversations with God and several other books about channeling, I wondered whether that was what was happening with me. But why and how? Was it possible that the accident had somehow launched me into another reality with all kinds of information were available? Or could it be that my spirit guides, my reading had taught me that we all have them, were helping me from the other side? The information seemed to be pouring into and through me. I had no idea where or whom it was coming from. There was far too much activity going on in my mind to give any space to contemplate that one. Every day I'd wake up with new ahas and ideas to research or check out on the internet. And as the pieces of the puzzle started falling into place, I began to sense that I was being given a blueprint for something so revolutionary and evolutionary that it really might have the potential to change people's lives. Either I was making it all up, or the dream I'd been nurturing for several years could actually become a real possibility. There is a famous quote by the 19th century German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, who states that all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second is violently opposed. Third is accepted as being self-evident. So how can a chamber that is furnished with just a zero gravity chair, a simple sound system, and a variety of color lights help people recover from such a diverse range of ailments as the testimonials on your website suggest? The answer to that is the reason I'm writing this book. The inimitable philosopher, systems theorist, architect, and inventor Buckminster Fuller once famously said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." That, for me, sums up the egg. What is energy? In fact, energy is one of the real constants of the universe because it is quite literally everything and everywhere, and all forms of energy have fields. So the energy that composes a living entity or organism, such as a tree, a plant, an animal, and you, is the same energy that composes a non-living entity like a brick, a house, or rock. We too are made up of the multi-dimensional mix of vibrating energies that are continually changing with our moods, physical state of health, what we consume, and even how we think and feel. The same is true of every organ and system in our body. Although science doesn't yet know how it is happening, it can now measure that our thoughts and emotions are literally being transmitted beyond our bodies to others through these fields at all times. Energy can also travel in the form of electromagnetic waves, such as heat, light, radio, and gamma rays. If we live our lives in a low frequency environment, thinking low vibrational thoughts, Eating low energy foods devoid of nutrition and surrounding ourselves with negative minded people whose fears, doubts, and lack of joy drain our energy, the more slowly our energy will flow and all the systems our body relies on for optimal health and well-being. Thoughts literally change the chemistry of every cell in our body. The point I am making here is that we are powerful beings, and the frequency of every thought, feeling, and emotion we have is like a cosmic wave of energy that travels through time and space and even physicality. And as many spiritual leaders point out, thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic. Contrary to what science had populated, we are not our DNA. Our genes do not control our biology. Instead, our DNA is controlled by signals from outside the cell, including the energetic messages emanating from our beliefs and our positive and negative thoughts. What's more, our bodies can be changed as we retrain our thinking. If a person expects a pill or procedure to do something, it's possible that the body's own chemistry can cause effects similar to what a medication might have caused. So if our brains can produce a similar substance to the one we believe we are taking, the placebo effect is not only in our minds, it's in our bodies too. This means that whenever we require healing, all we need to do is believe that our body knows how to heal itself. Since what we think and believe can affect how we feel, it will also influence how we heal. The Australian Aboriginal people are the first culture to heal with sound. Some say they've been using the didgeridoo as a tool in diseases for over 40,000 years. Dr. Royal Raymond Rife is credited with being one of the most forward thinkers in the 20th century for his use of vibrational energy or sound frequencies to cure cancer. In 2015, Dr. Searle gave a lecture on the power of sound and music at a conference in Helsinki, in which the shared evidence from a slew of scientific studies which show that listening to music releases endorphins, which increase the body's tolerance to pain and reduce stress. A study published in the Journal of Pediatrics in April 2013 looked at what happens when mothers sing lullabies to premature babies. Monitors showed that music reduced the stress levels of the babies, their heartbeats slowed, they became calmer, and oxygen saturation increased. 30 minutes of classical music produces the same effect as 10 milligrams of Valium. Rock music causes people to eat more food and to eat it faster. Pure sound can destroy cells such as cancer. Cancer cells show evidence that their cell nuclei are incapable of maintaining their structure when sound wave frequencies attack the cytoplasmic and nuclear membranes. In Mayman's research, 9 musical notes were played on a xylophone for 14 minutes. Resonance started in the middle of the cell and progressed outward. At the end of the 14 minutes, the cancer cells became disorganized and broke up. Website founded by renowned composer Stuart Mitchell has taken DNA music one step further. YourDNASong.com claims to be the first company in the world to express your own DNA code in music. It specializes in isolating your genetic signature and translating its sequence into musical pitch and rhythm. For a reasonably modest sum, you can have your DNA music translated, arranged, and scored for any solo instrument of your choice, and then performed and recorded by a professional artist. If you're looking for a truly original gift for a loved one, you can even have a fully scored orchestral work translated, produced, and arranged by professional composers. The translation of DNA code into music is a lengthy process, but one only has to listen to the different types of musical samples on their website to appreciate that the final productions result in music of great beauty and expression. Jonathan Goldman's latest book, written with his wife, Andy, explores the science behind sound healing. The Humming Effect, Sound Healing for Health and Happiness, examines how self-created sounds like humming can literally rearrange molecular structure. Humming, say the Goldmans, is one of the simplest and yet most profound sounds we can make. Research has shown it to be much more than a self-soothing sound. Cymatics, CYMATICS, is the study of sound and vibration made visible. There is strong evidence that dolphins are able to see with sound, much like humans use ultrasound to see an unborn child in the mother's womb. A vital step in the healing process is that of establishing resonance with the condition in question. Most people resist their condition. You cannot release that which you do not own. Sound is the train that helps us get to healing. Molecules that would make the disease worse were weakened after exposure to the light, and the ones responsible for improvement were strengthened. Eels says that certain wavelengths at a certain intensity for a certain amount of time act on the mitochondria and a particular enzyme, cytochrome C oxidase, to stimulate cell repair. From our skin through to the core of every organ and cell in our body, we are made of light. Light is the language by which our cells speak to one another. The DNA within the center of the nucleus of each of our cells has been shown to emit photons, parentheses, light. The amount of research that is currently emerging on the therapeutic uses for light as both therapy and medicine demonstrates that we are in the middle of a revolution in light and frequency medicine. The idea of light as an integral part of life and creation was evident since the beginning of time. In fact, all life on Earth evolved under the influence of light. That's why the portion of the universe we reside in is called the solar system, which means of or derived from light. Today, we know that all biological life is composed of and dependent on light. All physiological functions are light dependent. There are many ways to use color therapy, from eating specific colored foods to choosing colored clothing and wearing colored gemstones and jewelry. We can sit under lamps that emit different colored lights. We can point colored lights at specific parts of our body using instruments such as the ChromaLive color therapy pen light set, which is claimed to have been used at the Soho House in Los Angeles at the Academy Awards. And we can apply other methods of color therapy, such as using color therapy oils or color baths and painting our walls specific colors. We can also use systems such as Aurosoma oils, which utilize color, plant, and crystal energies to calm our energetic system or enhance our moods, emotions, and vitality. Sleep experts have known about the relationship between melatonin and light exposure for a long time. Light exposure suppresses melatonin production. If you suffer from drowsiness in the afternoon but can't afford to lose the time, sleep experts say that stepping outside and exposing yourself to sunlight will keep you awake and alert. Conversely, if you find it hard to go to sleep at night, wearing red or magenta glasses in the evening is said to help increase melatonin production by as much as 70%. The universal power of light energy or color harmonics, as Bean calls her holistic application of color energy, is the giver of all life. Harnessing this power opens us up to almost limitless opportunities to improve our spiritual, emotional, and physical existence. In essence, she says, we are beings of light and need to keep our energy flowing freely for vitality and a positive outlook on life. Many scientists and inventors, including Nikola Tesla, ascribed extreme importance to the number 3. Pythagoras taught that everything in the universe has a 3-part structure. All living organisms are dependent on 3 types of large molecules for all of their biological functions. The genetic code consists of 3-letter words called codons, C-O-D-O-N-S, which are formed when a sequence of 3 nucleotides. This makes the number 3 very important, as you could say that it represents the key to our existence, the key to understanding the complex DNA language. One of the most influential scientists of the 17th century was Isaac Newton. Newton introduced what became the basis of all modern physics, the 3 laws of motion. But what most people don't know is that Isaac Newton was a mystic who was extremely interested in alchemy. A translation of an ancient document called the Emerald Tablet was said to have been found among his philosophy, astronomy, and mathematics documents. The Emerald Tablet is also known as the Smagrine Tablet or Tabula Smagrina. It has fascinated alchemists for hundreds of years because it was thought to be one of the several tablets that contained esoteric information on the practice of alchemy and the entire knowledge of the universe. According to researchers, these tablets were discovered in the Great Pyramids thousands of years ago. In vortex math, if you polarize everything, the numbers 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8 are numbers that represent the physical world, and the numbers 3, 6, 9 are numbers that represent the spiritual world. According to the Tesla code, thought, feelings, and beliefs combine to make up vibrational frequencies which reshape the universe around us from a quantum level all the way up to the physical world. In other words, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are spiritual, non-physical things that affect the physical universe around us because we are energetically and vibrationally one with it. Many people believe that the Tesla code is the missing link to the law of attraction taught in the movie The Secret. Everything that happens in the universe begins with intention. Intention is the starting point of every dream. It is the creative power that fulfills all of our needs, whether for money, relationships, spiritual awakening, or love. Deepak Chopra. The classic Vedic text, the Upanishads declare, you are what your deepest desire is. As your desire is, so is your intention. As your intention is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so it is your destiny. Remember, as Deepak Chopra says, everything that happens in the universe begins with intention. Intention is the starting point of every dream. Just keep in mind to be careful what you wish for, be specific, and remember that thoughts become things.